has been a long time since we've covered any Review Tech USA content. Probably because the channel is completely dead, and this obese man-child had to move on to a new channel, Rich Tomorrow. He had to lean into the memes. Like, I don't understand why he would do this, where he legit is calling his new channel Rich Tomorrow. It's just like, what are you doing, bro? Like, what do you think is gonna happen? It's just a complete joke, you know? This jobless bum is sitting in his parents' house that he stole from them, I think. I don't know the whole context of that. But, like, he's sitting there with a channel, like, he lost a million sub channel, okay? He lost his, like, extremely lucrative, iconic YouTube channel, Review Tech USA, and now he's doing the exact same thing on a different channel. It's like, it's over, okay? It never even began, really, but I think this is like a tacit admission that, like, the only reason this guy is relevant is because of, like, the detractors, because of, like, the locale community, because of, like, the general, like, locale culture, right? It's not about technology, you know? It's not about tech. It's not about Nintendo. It's just just this son of a Snorlax just sitting here, like, concern trolling about Switch 2. And you can look at his channel. Like, there's a bunch of Switch 2 videos out right now. He's trying to like rebuild his channel by criticizing Switch 2, which isn't going to work. But yeah, let's go ahead and play this video.
Switch 2 motherboard has been leaked, gentlemen, and now we know the true specs and true power of Nintendo's next generation console.
Matt, I'm hard pressed.
Okay.
How did the chicken thing even happen? I still have no idea. But anyway.
So it seems like just when I'm kind of getting bored of talking about Switch 2 news, there's something that pulls me back in. And this definitely pulled me back in, like really pulled on me. That sounds weird, but that's what happened. There is a YouTube...
That's because it is weird, Rich. Like, what are you talking about? Like, wow.
YouTuber named Geeker Wan. I believe he's from China. And it's funny because people in the comment section were like, dude, you haven't uploaded a video in a year. The last video he uploaded was talking about the specs of the iPhone 15 before this Switch 2 motherboard leak. And so it's pretty interesting. It just pops up out of nowhere, drops a Switch 2 motherboard leak and talks about all the specs and what's on the actual motherboard, and he just vanishes again like he has wings and goes off into the sunset.
Why would you ever care about what some Chinese guy says about Switch 2, right? The console isn't even, like, releasing in China, I believe. Like, I think the way that most Chinese people get a hold of it is that they just import it through they just import it through Hong Kong. So, like, it's technically, like, not allowed by China, but, like, Chinese people get a hold of the console anyway.
Whatever. It's pretty awesome. He got his hands on a Switch 2 motherboard. Well, not only did he do, like, a teardown of the motherboard, he actually tried to get it to power up. It wouldn't. Who knows if it's because the board is defective? Who knows if there's parts missing from it? Whatever the case.
So he couldn't even get the... So this is like some hoax video, right? Some guy just says that, like, oh, I have the Switch 2 motherboard, and too bad I can't get it to work, though. It's like, well, how do you know it's the Switch? Like,
maybe. Well, even though they couldn't get the board to power on, they brought it to a lab where they actually had it, like, broken down, and they looked at the CPU and the silicon under a microscope, and they found out everything about the Nintendo Switch 2 what kind of RAM it's going to have, what the speed of the RAM is, what the GPU is capable of, what the CPU cores are, everything. And we're going to go over it here. They even did some rudimentary benchmarks, and they tried to compare it to an RTX 2050 mobile GPU, which it's kind of similar to. And they even did some CPU benchmarks and did something they felt was comparable on the CPU side. There's a lot of details here. I did trim the fat. If you want to see the original video from Geeker One, shout out to that channel. I'll have a link to it below in the description, so they go into the full detail. I'm just going to kind of give snapshots of things that I thought were interesting, and then I'll give you my final take on what I think of the Switch 2's hardware and what I think the future of the Switch 2 will be with these specs that we now officially know about it. Like, come on, this is the real deal. Now, as you're seeing here, this is the motherboard. You're seeing the NVIDIA system on a chip. There's going to be 12 gigabytes of SK Hynix LPDDR5X 128-bit RAM running at 8,533 mega transfers per second, so it's really fast DDR5 RAM. It's going to have 256 gigabytes of SK Hynix UFS, Universal Flash Storage, which is using the standard UFS 3.1, and this should give it read speeds of 2,100 megabytes per second and write speeds of 1,200 megabytes per second, approximately. For wireless connectivity, we're going to have the MediaTek MT3681AEN that just rolls right off the tongue. That's the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth chip. It's going to be Wi-Fi 6, not 7, unfortunately, but it'll be perfectly fine. The power supply that they're using for the SoC is the PMIC Dialog DA9092, which maxes out at 34.4 watts. And for audio, they're using a Realtek ALC 5658 audio codec. Now, the die size of the NVIDIA SoC, or the Switch 2 SoC, we could say, it's a beefy boy. It's 207 millimeters. And if you compare it to like the 3050 Ti die size at 200 millimeters, the Ryzen 7 7840H, that's an 8-core 16-thread chip with a 178 millimeter die size. The Apple M2 is 150. So there was rumors that the Switch 2 was actually going to release earlier than June 5th, 2025, but they delayed it. And if you look at what they saw under the microscope, again, it was taped in 2021. That's a long time, even for a console, to have a chip being manufactured and to when it was put into hardware. So it kind of adds some more credibility to the rumors that the Switch 2, they were thinking about releasing it earlier, which I kind of thought they would too, because...
No, is this guy really going to sit there and try and tell you, well, actually, they were totally going to release the Switch 2 in 2021. No, stop! Like, unbelievable. Like, he's still trying to, like, give credibility to these, like, rumors that were debunked years ago. Like, oh, they were going to do this, but they did this instead because, and here's why. Like, what a joke.
Man, that Tegra X1 in the original Switch is super long in the tooth. So it kind of would make sense, but whatever. Here we are. They're releasing the Switch 2 not even a month from now. Okay, so when it comes to CPU specs, we have 8 A78 ARM cores with 4 megabytes of level 3 cache that's shared with all the 8 cores, running at 1.1 gigahertz in dock mode and 1 gigahertz in handheld mode, and a certain RTX 20 streaming multi-processors.
I don't think there's any point in going over this tech stuff because, like, I don't even believe this thing is real, so...
One did some benchmarks, and what they did is they had a massively downclocked mobile RTX 2050 from a laptop to kind of have an apples to apples comparison, even though it still kind of isn't, with the GPU inside of the Switch 2. And the benchmarks, they were benchmarks. They were okay. I mean, all right. Anyway, I'll shut up now. I'll show you some performance numbers, and then we'll discuss. Now, what Geeker One did for these benchmarks is they ran the clock speeds at what they would be in docked mode. Then they also ran the benchmark at what the specs would be in handheld mode, and they showed how the games ran. And here we go.
I'm hard.
All right, so let's start off with Cyberpunk 2077, which is going to be a launch game for the Switch 2. Docked mode. Again, these are simulated where they took a 2050 mobile GPU, downclocked the crap out of it, and tweaked the settings to kind of make it like dock mode in Switch 2, and then they tried it with what would be simulated to be handheld mode in Switch 2. So we'll start with docked mode for Cyberpunk 2077. There's two modes.
It's not docked mode, but you're just doing this like weird simulation to like try and complain about the specs. Like, what? Huh?
We'll start with quality and what
you
it would
couldn't even
be on the
boot the
Switch
motherboard
2,
up.
kind of. 1080p, low settings, DLSS set to quality, so the game is rendering natively at 720p and the image is being reconstructed to 1080p with DLSS. You got about upper 30-ish FPS.
How are you trying to do a visual comparison when you don't have a visual? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like,
keep in mind too that Cyberpunk 2077 is going to have dynamic resolution, so that should help with frame performance simulation. Great. Yeah, that was rendering at a weird resolution of 626p and being upscaled or reconstructed once again. And medium preset and best little 7 chats in this, which is on Airbus. So I know 6. There you go. Linus Tech Tips or Gamers Nexus. I am not, but I know.
Oh, Linus Tech Tips. That guy who tried to prove that you could put together a $500 PC that was more powerful than a PS5 Pro and failed. That guy, has no credibility whatsoever in the gaming sphere. Yeah, okay, sure, man.
Oh, a decent amount about specs and things like that, and I'll say this first. Let me say this first because I know people are gonna jump on me, metaphorically. Please don't jump on me. I understand that this is simulated, and again, you're dealing with the bloated drivers of PC and PC games.
What are you talking about? Like, I understand this is a simulation. Then why did you make this video? Like, everything you talked about in this video, this 20-minute video, was completely pointless. Like, oh, this is how the game is going to look and how it's going to run. Like, I'm sure there's actual footage of Cyberpunk 2077 running on Nintendo Switch 2 right now. I haven't looked for it because I don't care about that game, but like you're going to see that game in action very, very soon. Like in a month at the absolute latest. Like, what is he talking about? Like, oh, we're gonna simulate how the Switch 2 motherboard is gonna run these. Like, what is he talking about? Like,
are not as optimized as console games, because when developers make games for consoles, they only have to worry about a couple pieces of hardware. There was a time they only used to have to worry about one piece of hardware from each company, but nonetheless, there's only going to be one Switch 2, and I'm sure even when they release refinements and they're going to make a Switch 2 OLED and a Switch 2 Lite, so on and so forth, it's still going to be the same SoC in there, minus maybe a smaller fabrication process down the line. So the good news is that I'm sure at worst, this is just the baseline of things we can expect, even though, it's not really an apples-to-apples comparison. And I'm sure the hardware optimizations that developers will do when they produce games for the Switch will make them run even better than what we see here. But even though I knew, I remember Digital Foundry talking about how it was going to be equivalent to...
Digital Foundry also has no credibility.
A mobile 2050. I believe it was them, an RTX 2050, that is. I was expecting a little bit more out of the performance. I mean, if you look at one of the charts there when it comes to the GPU performance, the 780M, that is, let me show you something. The 780M, which is integrated graphics on some of AMD's CPUs or APUs, you could call them. Like this has the Ryzen 7 7840U in here, and this has the Radeon 780M integrated graphics, which has 12 compute units, and it's based on RDNA 3. And I was hoping, in terms of performance, and again, I know that we can't just take what we saw with someone downclocking a mobile RTX 2050 and make it Bible for what the Switch 2's performance is going to be. But to see the delta in between the 780M that's in here and what they were getting for their simulated Switch 2 benchmarks, it was like, oh man, that's surprising. And it's not surprising in a good way. And actually, I pulled up the chart again. I almost forgot to mention these 2 points. The simulated Switch 2, yes, it was behind the Series S. Where did that go? Anyway, now am I still excited for the Switch 2? Yes, it's still a huge jump in performance from the original Switch. And I would say from at least 2022, it has been time to move on from the ancient original Switch hardware. But was I expecting not a lot more from the Switch 2 in performance-wise? And again, I know these are simulated benchmarks. It's not like they were able to actually get that motherboard powered up and run benchmarks on the actual SoC that's going to be inside the Switch 2. I get that, but I expected a little bit more out of it. Like,
I can't get over how he's still trying to like tell people that like, well, actually, we should have moved on from the Switch 1 in 2022. Like, what are you talking about? We got a bunch of games after that year. Like we're still getting games like at least as late as 2026. Like this idea that like, oh, Switch, it needs to be replaced. Like, it's not going to be replaced. You know, it hasn't been. You know, like if anything, a lot of Switch 2's features indicate that the Switch 1 isn't going to be replaced like anytime soon. You know, the fact that like game share is a thing, like that thing is going to be very, 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 very relevant. So, yeah,
like let's go to moderate amount more out of it, and hopefully hardware optimizations are what's going to save it. At least it's more powerful than a PlayStation 4, right? Thank God. It's more powerful than the system that's over a decade old. But again, I'm sure I'll have fun playing Mario Kart World and maybe the system when it comes out, and I'll get Cyberpunk 2077, even though I'm not really a big fan of the game, just to see how it runs on there, and maybe it'll surprise me. And if it does, you know why this channel's called Richard Tomorrow, because if circumstances change, I will change my opinion.
Yes. Yes, the expert. Like, oh man, I can update my opinion whenever I want. Tomorrow, I'm gonna have a completely different opinion because circumstances change. Like, unbelievable. That is just disgusting. Oh man, what an idiot. Unbelievable. So yeah, that's ReviewTechUsa. You know, one of the biggest scumbags on the platform, trying really, really hard to like downplay the Switch 2 pre-release, you know? Like he's just gonna do the same thing he did with the Switch 1, where like he was hyped for it, like going into it, like, and like, you know, about a year later, like, oh, it's time for an upgrade, you know, like, you know, he was doing that. So yeah, like he's gonna keep complaining about Switch 2. He's not gonna play any games on it. Like he's a complete and total fraud. He's not a gamer. Okay, like that's my big thing about RTU is that like all YouTubers, he doesn't actually play video games. And if you don't play video games, then why should anyone in the gaming community ever listen to you?